Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We review fantasy, romantasy, dark romance, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, fan theories, and more. And here's your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Yep, and going forward from here, there is going to be spoilers for basically the Maasverse as a whole. While we won't get into Crescent City fully, or Throne of Glass fully, this down the rabbit hole for this episode is going to include theories for ACOTAR 6 and 7, and therefore the Maasverse is all interconnected. So we are going to be discussing little blips and pieces of all of those. And there might be an announcement towards what we're going to be discussing towards the end of this year, maybe in the end here. So we'll have to see. But consider this spoiler warning for definitely A Court of Silver Flames, all of ACOTAR, and possibly some minor spoilers for the Maasverse overall. But I would say that they're pretty significant spoilers if you haven't read Throne of Glass or Crescent City, because it's going to be talking about how these worlds are going to be interwoven. And we'll talk about that more in a few minutes.
All right, well, let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
Okay, so it's our final drink of the episode for ACOTAR. We have Nesta's book, A Court of Silver Flames. And the way that I experimented with a couple of drinks that were like gray and, silver flamey and the cold silver flames, and I wanted to do a play on that, I really thought about that quite a bit. But then I thought more about it, and I really thought that the best thing would be to do something more tied to the color of the book, simply because we did do a couple of things that were based on the color. We have this rich orange color, and I actually wanted to do a name of a drink that tied more to Nesta's journey more than like the Silver Flames, because the Silver Flames are really from the cauldron, and while they're part of her, she kind of rejects this idea of this whole time. So this drink is actually just going to be called Nothing Can Break Us, and it's orange, like the book cover. And so I thought this book is so much more, and there's actually some glitter in there. There's like edible white glitter in there. You can't really see it, but I've got my favorite floating orange on the top there. I love a dehydrated fruit on the top there, and then it's orange. And so I thought a lot about it more, and I thought Nothing Can Break Us, given that, she's in this with her friends here, that she finally has friends. She just goes through such a journey in this book. And I am the rock against which the surf crashes. Nothing can break me. And then Emery says, nothing can break us. And so I felt like that part of it, of this girlhood that she finally gets to have truly, and this opportunity for her to get away from her vices and finally kind of use her powers for good as we see her character arc grow and change, made sense to me to do a drink that embodied that versus the flames itself, because the Silver Flames are not really Nesta. They are, but they're of the cauldron. And so I think that it made more sense to me to do something of our character here that leads the way, our FMC. And so Nothing Can Break Us is right here. And what it is, now you might be wondering, it's orange because it's for the book color. It's orange because it has orange juice, lemonade, orange vodka, and mango puree. So put that on ice with, I know, right? Put that on ice with a little sprinkle of edible glitter. Shake, 20 seconds or so, like really shake it good so it gets super cold. And then ideally put it in a chilled glass, and that's your drink. So cheers.
Ooh.
And it is good. Very good. Can't taste the vodka at all. Super dangerous. Yes.
Something
So,
Cassian
just like
would
Nesta.
likely get wasted on. Right. And Cassian would
Yes.
definitely get wasted on at Rita's because,
Right.
fruity.
Dangerous.
So that sounds delicious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Subtly dangerous. Yes. Sneaks up on you. Absolutely.
I don't know if
Yep.
Nesta is subtle, though. I don't think
No, she's
there's nothing
not.
subtle
She's
about
not.
her.
But I do think her story is subtle initially. Like, I think how she's gonna get there, the 10,000 steps, all of those things are a little bit different than what we've seen in the previous books, I think, as far as pacing and all that. So we'll get into that more. But
Mhm.
yeah, so Nothing Can Break Us. That's the name of tonight's drink. And yeah, looks like the book
All
cover.
right. Well,
Orangish.
cheers.
Not quite as deep a orange, but close. Yeah. Cheers.
Mhm.
All right. So tonight we're diving into A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. So whether you're reading along with us or you're just here for the book talk, we are always glad that you're here. We'll start tonight's episode with our star ratings, our spice ratings, as we've done in the past. Most notably different for our ACOTAR coverage versus other podcasters will be the lack of a deep dive. We are not doing a deep dive. It's very intentional that we're not doing a deep dive. We're doing a broad overview of our reread experience. That is because we believe that there are other podcasters out there who have spent umpteen hours diving into this series. And please go give those folks a listen if that's what you're looking for. We are in our reread era. We're going through it for a second time ourselves, and we never posted about it the first time we went through it because the podcast simply didn't exist. We didn't have a show. So we're giving our star ratings, our spice ratings. We'll have some discussion questions that are some banterish questions between Michelle and I that are book club style that go through a lot of what's happened in this book. And then we will do Down the Rabbit Hole. And specifically for this episode of Down the Rabbit Hole, especially rounding out ACOTAR, I thought it would be important to go down the rabbit hole of the many, many ways that the Maasverse fandom has created all these different theories as to what we might see next in books 6 and 7. And then, of course, we'll wrap with mystery Q&A. So that's our show.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So, star ratings. Again, if you're ever curious of what we're using for our star ratings, we have our good old rubric posted on our social media, and it goes star ratings and our spice ratings. So, and we both have discussed that this is our favorite book. So, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Actually talking about it and talking through it with you. So
Finally.
this is right. This is a 5-star for me. Even though, like, I have some minor qualms with the plot and pacing and little things. Overall, in terms of like the story and the healing journey and like Nesta's character development, Nesta's relationship with Cassian and the sisterhood and all of the stuff, this is an easy 5-star for me. What about you, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this in the previous episode, so if you haven't gotten to listen to those, highly suggest it as we round out the series. But I would agree with you that this book solidly puts the series as a 5-star for me. I think without this book and the subsequent coming books, that we were at risk of maybe a four-star series, frankly. I think because of all the things we talked about before with the pacing, there was so much dramatic writing improvement as we get into this book that I enjoyed it that much more and on a reread, because I've read so much since the first time I read this series, I think that only emphasized it more, and it makes this a 5-star for sure, especially by comparison to the other books. There is no comparison in my opinion. You got your complex characters, immersive settings, your intricate original plot, immediate emotional connection, hooked from the start, couldn't put it down. And yeah, it is life-changing. It's the book that I truly think is the best of this series. The trilogy is fantastic collectively put together, but this book on its own is a 5. And then as a series whole, it's a 5-star. But yeah, that's my rating.
Absolutely. And I feel like she achieves this because she's not trying desperately to build out the world from here.
Mhm.
We're in places that we've already seen. So obviously we're going to the camps more, but the camps were described already. We're in the House of Wind. Like, for the most part, we're in the House of Wind, and there's more detailed description there. But Sarah J Maas isn't trying to completely build out. There's a few new places, but as we talked about in like the last book, or the last 2 books in our last episode, um, she had to describe a lot of the courts and we had to go to a lot of places. Here, we're not doing a whole lot of traveling through the duration compared to like how big the book is. There isn't a lot of, setting jumps comparatively, in my opinion, at least.
I would agree.
Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so I think that's why it's a little bit more maintainable because there's more emphasis on Nesta's growth and the relationship piece and the character development piece. So let's talk about spice then, because this book is a lot spicier than the last
Yeah.
books.
Agree.
Because one, Nesta is filthy. She is filthy.
She's a grown woman. And you have to
She
remember,
is.
too, she's older. She's the oldest sister here.
And she's been
And-
around
Yes.
since, she's had her fair share of,
She's 25.
patrons.
I mean, she's our oldest
Yeah.
FMC of the sisters, obviously
Right.
not of the rest. I would say she's probably pretty tame compared to Amryn or Moore in terms of like their thoughts and filth and all of that
Yes,
by
absolutely.
this age. But by comparison of the Archeron sisters, she's
Mhm.
definitely the spiciest so far. We don't
Right.
know what Elaine might be the spiciest, and we just don't know a girl yet. I mean,
You
it's
have to
possible.
watch out for the
We
quiet
don't
ones.
know. Yeah, I'm just saying. We don't know. She's the quiet
Right.
gardener over there. Who the heck knows what she's up to? But I would agree with you. Yes, she's significantly less. Has no qualms about sharing her.
No, she
midnight
thinks
activities.
about Cassian and
Azriel.
Azriel
Oh yeah.
together.
All
It
of-
was like,
yes,
oh,
exactly.
okay. This is a thought.
Yep.
This would be a normal thought, seeing these two Illyrian warriors. And
Well, and she also talks
yeah.
about how that's not abnormal for her, and that she's already
Yeah.
engaged in those things
Right,
before when
right.
she would, she had met people at the bar and went home with multiple partners. Yeah. So what was your spice rating then?
Spice, I would say, goes a little bit more into, I would say like a 3.5. Honestly, we're not doing anything taboo. I mean, yes, there's mention of it, but we're not actually like doing anything really in
Right.
the taboo area.
There's no open
era.
door.
No,
Yeah,
and they
there's
have sex
nothing-
multiple times. So I mean, we have the good, put your hands on the headboard, that scene.
Oh, yeah.
So we have some good scenes. I think because I don't want to say that we could do without them though. Like I think they're important because it establishes their relation. They're both not
I was gonna give
wanting
it a
to
4.
accept the mating bond in a way.
Yeah.
So especially Nesta, she feels the pull, she questions the pull, but she's like, no, fuck this. He doesn't I don't deserve this is kind of her framing. And everyone
Yeah.
who hates on Nesta, it's like you have to understand her perspective and why she's treating Cassian like shit. It's not acceptable, but understanding from her point of view, she doesn't deserve the type of goodness that he has.
Anything
So
in her mind.
they're the sex with them is transactional. So it's a very different comparison with Feyre and Rhysand.
But was it
it's
ever?
important too.
Was
No.
it ever?
No, it's a facade for sure.
Verbally.
Yeah,
they're saying
verbally
that,
it's transactional,
but it's not.
but no, it's a facade for sure. But it's important that so we see actions versus words and the chemistry there. So I think it's important to have those scenes on page as opposed to a lot of the Feyre Rhysand scenes. Sometimes I could do without it, it's not necessarily important. We like the spice, but it's not important. Here I think we needed the spice. So I was 3.5-ish, leaning closer to the 4.
I give it a 4. Definitely. I give it a 4 just based on our scale because it's spicy with intention. It does have high intensity and pretty regularly spicy scenes, especially as compared to the rest of the book. Is it anywhere close to a dark romance, which to me would most usually be a 4.5 to 5? No. But are we definitely significantly spicier than the previous books? And does it have some mention of taboo topics? Yes. Are they on page? No, but they're mentioned. And it is well written, and it does add depth, excitement, and tension, which to me is solidly 4. It is significantly spicier than the rest of the books in this series, not just because of the open door nature of it, but because of the thoughts that she has and the comments that are made and the snarky remarks and just those types of things. And Rhysand and Feyre have that too, especially Rhysand. He's definitely a lot more spicy than Feyre can be. But I think that kind of comes with the territory for what she's been through and who she is as a person. And the same is true with Nesta. She's older, she's more experienced. This is her kind of part of the way she's dealt with trauma is to, get some of that magical buildup and frustration that she has out through, sex, violence, and alcohol and rock and roll. Really, she's having some issues. She loves music. So she's doing all these things. But even as the book goes on, you're thinking like, oh, we're gonna get away from some of that spiciness as she cleans herself up, and that's not true. If anything, it escalates to a different way of like she still needs to cope with what she's going through, and she experiences those things in a way that is her and makes sense for her story and her character development. So I solidly give it a 4 for
Okay.
spice.
All right, fair. And then let's talk about the audiobook for a little bit because we both did the immersive audio. So, how are you feeling of this audiobook compared to the other audiobooks?
In terms of
Like just narration because we have a different perspective now. So we had different voice actors and for this audiobook because we had Nesta's perspective.
oh right,
So yeah.
because it's Nesta and Cassian that we're hearing
Mhm.
from. I really enjoyed them a lot.
Okay.
I think I just like Feyre pretty much annoyed me, but it wasn't the voice actor's fault because she did a great job. It was more of
Mhm.
just the character herself, her points of view and how she thinks is like, I just don't think the same way, but I don't have to identify with the main character for it to be a well-written character. Just because I don't necessarily identify with Feyre doesn't mean she's inherently bad or good.
What do
Some
you
of the
mean?
stuff
You
she
don't
would
see
say is,
yourself as her? She's not you as you're reading?
I don't see myself as any of them because they're not real people. But anyway,
What? A
I
concept.
know. So anyway, but I can identify with Nesta more, but that doesn't necessarily either mean that I would like how her mind works and what she thinks just because her trauma is something that I can understand or even her age or whatever. I just think that the performance from the two and frankly like the pacing of this book is what really made it for me. From an audiobook perspective, like the fight scenes, hearing the swords and all the things and like that was really good, but that was in other books. I think what sets this book apart is not the audiobook, it's the writing. Sarah J Maas stepped it up in this book, and the book is longer, and I am grateful for it. That was my biggest qualm with her other books is it felt rushed. It felt too fast, and it felt like it wasn't frankly believable enough. And I know we're in a fantasy world, okay? I get that. For all the haters are going to be like, it's of course you're not going to believe it. It's not real. Yeah, I understand that. But I'm saying for me to have buy-in emotionally to these characters, you have to go through something that gives me enough time to have buy-in. And I
Right.
felt like for
Fair.
Nesta's journey in particular, we don't get a lot of her. We get blips and pieces of her. So you can't even say like, oh, well, you've gotten to know her over 5 books. No, I haven't. She's not been the main character. Feyre and Rhysand have been the main characters for most of the series. And I love both of them for their own reasons. And I have my gripes with both of them for their own reasons. Same is true for Nesta and Cassian. And honestly, frankly, Cassian kind of annoyed me until he's in this book. I didn't really understand him as a whole. And I thought his one-liners were like, okay, but like he's just kind of there. I was like, why do I care this much about this guy? What's the deal? And then Cassian's fully redeemed for me in Silver Flames. I
Okay.
loved him after this book. And I think I just had so much more respect for him as a character and how he speaks to her, gives her space. Again, the pacing here is what did it for me in this book versus because I will say even though Frost and Starlight wasn't my favorite, I love the audiobook because I felt like I was in winter with them. I felt like I was part of Winter Solstice. I felt like because it was so good, the graphic audio was just done so well. The same is true here. I think that
Okay.
the difference is the pacing. What about you?
Okay, fair. This is actually my least favorite audiobook, and it's because there are a lot of times where Cassian's dialogue or Cassian's perspective was told from the Nesta voice actress. And at first I'm like, am I
Oh, that
mishearing
is
this?
true. It's confusing. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, am I mishearing this? And I was like, wait, no. This is supposed to be Cassian right now. Why is
Yeah.
it read by Nesta? So that part really annoyed me because that didn't happen in the other books. So when it
That's
was
fair.
distinctly another person's
You know what? I didn't
dialogue,
even
it was read
notice
by the other
it.
person.
Did you just listen to it or did you read the book at the same time?
I did both.
Like, did you read? Okay.
Yeah.
So I did both too, and I guess it didn't bother me as much because I knew I corrected it in my head right away.
Okay.
But you're totally right. I
Yeah.
did notice it, but I didn't like stick to it. And you're
Right.
totally right. That was
Yeah.
something that was weird that was about this book. Yeah.
So that was like my only gripe with it. Like, why? Sometimes his dialogue would pop up as his voice actor. So I thought it was weird that it wasn't all the time. And I don't know what if that was like a production thing, a budget thing. Like, what? I mean, I would assume budget's pretty limitless with ACOTAR. It's just, with how big it is. But, I don't know like the logistics of that. So that was my only real issue with this one. Obviously the other aspects of it and the sounds were all phenomenal. I was like, why? That was weird for me. Um but yeah. So let's get into our discussion questions. So our book club style discussion questions. So the first one is obviously trauma. This book, and all the books, have to deal with trauma. But this book really goes in depth in grappling with like severe trauma and overcoming it, and how the path to overcoming a traumatic event, your past, is really, it's not linear at all. There's ups and downs. There's no right way to do it, and that's what Feyre and Rhysand, who have gone through trauma, and really all of the inner circle has gone through trauma, right? But nothing they're doing is helping, and they really struggle with trying to help Nesta, and we have like this last ditch effort of, we're gonna isolate you from yourself, or from everyone else, because you're hurting yourself and we don't know what to do at this point. So what did you think of Nesta's journey? What did you think of really Feyre and Rhysand's actions and her isolation? Like, thoughts on that whole setup from the beginning?
Tough because you kind of see Nesta as like a spoiled bitch right at the beginning because
Yeah.
she's just out there completely fine with spending Feyre and Reese's money, but resenting who they are and what they stand for. Like, girl, we've got to pick. You can't be doing this.
Pick a
Like, that's
struggle.
not going to fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, they're out, you know, being the high lord and lady and da da da, and I'm slumming it here and da, da. Honey, that's a choice, but also like, why?
A
You're
literal
you're you're
choice.
perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine hating on them and all of the things they've gone through, but you are also fine with taking their money. And that was where I was like, whenever she was pitching a fit of like, you can't do this. Actually, girl, they can. Unless you want to go up to the human lands, they absolutely can. She was basically given a teenage girl at that point where I was like,
For sure.
okay, we're all done here. And honestly, if you've dealt with any people that are going through where they're basically, she's self-harming is what's happening here. She's making deliberate and intentional choices to continue to self-harm, and they're worried about her and how far that could go and what that could look like, especially given that now she has no, she's immortal essentially. She's there. When is the limit for this, and how long are we going to let this carry on? And it's interesting because as she goes through it, Cassian's like, "Oh, you could be in this state for like decades, like I was, or Reese
Yeah.
was," and going through and healing yourself this way, and going through and just drinking yourself stupid for decades until you get this fixed. And Feyre's unwilling to allow that time frame. She's like, "You want to do it? Fine. You're not going to do it here, and I'm not going to pay for it. So if you want to go do it, good for you. Go to the human lands. I'm not going to pay for it." And there's level of respect there of where I think Feyre loves her sister dearly. And if there's something that I can respect about her as a character is she absolutely has and will continue to do anything she can for her family. And that extends into the Night Court once she's a member of that. And that extends into Valaris and all the things she's over is she will absolutely do whatever she can to protect, what's hers. And Nesta's included in that, whether she wants to be or not. But again,
Right.
she's perfectly willing to go spend their money and resent them at the same time. And yeah, I definitely took issue with that. I was like, girl, we can't be doing this. If you want to be independent woman, you need to be footing your own bills. Okay. We can't be doing that. That's just not going
Right.
to work. So I get it. And I supported Feyre and Rhysand's actions for what they did. What did you think?
Right. I mean, Same. And the fact that like Rhysand even offered her like a position in his court and it was like, you can make your own money. Like, that like you can be
Yeah, you're supposed to be an
self-sufficient here.
emissary. Like, you
And
have a role
right,
here.
exactly. And she chose like the skeeziest little apartment in the skeeziest part of town. So she's making these deliberate choices to because I mean, she thinks she deserves it. Because of, she blames herself for her father's death. Really, that's of all the things that happened in that war, like that singular part like fractured her. And like repetitively, and it was very difficult for her, obviously. So I understood her self-destruction. Even though it was frustrating to read, I understood it. It made sense. That would be what a human would have done. So I got it. Feyre and Rhysand, absolutely. I mean, if you're not going to listen to us, like fuck off into the House of Wind. You will be fully taken care of, but you will not be uh you're not going to be like destroying yourself ultimately.
Yeah.
And the whole
Mhm.
training. So that leads into like, her therapy was training, which is very much like girl need therapy. But, they don't they don't have that in the Fae world.
Yeah.
So their therapy was like training regularly. So um and really getting into the like the Illyrians, which I thought is interesting on a reread. I forgot the Illyrians and aren't like high fae. Like I forgot that wasn't a thing. I was like combining them in my head. I was like, "Oh wait, you're right. They don't have their ears are rounded." Cassian's ears are rounded, and um I thought it was really I was like, "Oh." So it was a good for a reread because I'm like, "Oh wait, I forgot that whole aspect of that part of the plot and characters." And obviously it makes sense, or it's important in terms of like how his inner circle Rhysand's inner circle functions, and how people despise Cassian because he's not high fae, but he has this important role. Azriel too. Even though Azriel kind of comes from like a family of standing, he still has like, that issue of not being a high fae. And Yeah, so really that was a tangent, but really going back to like the whole training as part of her healing aspect. What did you think of, her being with the Illyrians and all the Illyrian training, and then we have the library training as well, like for her mind. So body and mind really trying to heal. What were your thoughts?
I think the idea for both forms is exposure, and then it's her choice, what level of effort she decides that she wants to put in. And at first, Cassian brings her up to go do this training with the Illyrians at their camp, and she does nothing. She sits on a rock repeatedly.
Which
And
is
Cassian cannot
embarrassing.
figure out, oh God, yeah, I mean, this is the general, and he can't make a girl high fae get up and go do anything. She just sits there. And she's got so much pride and stubbornness that he finally realizes that, oh, she should just train, at the House of Wind up at the training area that exists there, because she just doesn't want anyone to see her. She's that prideful that she's like, I won't embarrass myself. I'm not doing it. I just won't do anything. Like,
Fair.
what are you gonna do about it? So he finally realizes this, and then once it becomes not about that and about kind of physically hurting herself and putting herself through the ringer and putting her body through it, um, the stairs, like the 10,000 steps, the mental piece of that, of her literally going down there and facing her mental demons by going and walking these steps, is very, very true to life experiences. Many people cope with their trauma through working through things and overcoming things through physical means. And a lot of that can be running races or weightlifting or, um, whatever the thing may be, that pushes your body to release those endorphins. And there is fact to the positive responses that your body can have to those endorphins. And while she's not human anymore, the conversations she's having in her own mind about wanting to basically destroy herself deliberately. I'm showing up every day. I'm going to keep showing up every day. And then this is what I mean about pacing. At first, I'm just punishing myself. That's what the workout is. I'm punishing myself. I don't care that I'm blistering. I don't care that my clothes don't fit correctly. I don't care that all the things. Like, it's not about that. And then it suddenly, when she starts to really get into a a pacing of going and doing this and believing in herself a little bit more and realizing that there are other women, specifically in the library, who have had, in her mind, significantly more traumatic things happen to them, and that they work in the library and um, are have an opportunity. She thinks, like, I have this opportunity that I can give them a physical outlet. Like, they don't even see the sun, right? So they don't have this exposure. They have their own music and their own thing going on, the priestess and all that. But the thing that most sticks out to me is that it seems very, like I said, true to life. That someone with intense trauma, the way that Nesta has and the way that she needs to get through this without sitting with a therapist, is likely going to be sitting with herself for reading whatever her choice may be, and the House of One offers up plenty of spicy books.
Oh, yes, she
But
does.
also learning about the world that she's in, yeah. Getting the history of Prythian. But and then the other side of it is that physical exhaustion. And what that does to, she gets so tired at certain points that she's so exhausted that she doesn't even think about any of it. None of the
Mhm.
negativity, because her body is so focused on moving. And that's true for many, many people who go through significant traumas. A lot of them will get really heavily into fitness. And a big part of that is because while they're working out, they can only focus on the one thing. I find this to be true in hot yoga, honestly. When I'm in hot yoga, I am like quite literally dying. And I can't think of anything else because I'm trying to hold this pose and literally breathe. And you can't think about your trauma and all your whatever things that you've gone through. You can't think about it because your brain is functionally doing something else, and then you're having this positive endorphin rush afterwards. That's um, you know, it's just something that I think was very true to that. And I think that the other point is that um Sarah J Maas talked about that in her podcast, about how the things Nesta goes through, while she didn't identify specifically with those things, the trauma piece of it and how Nesta copes is something that she really did understand. And she was coming from a place of working through her own as she was writing this character. And I think that really shows.
Right. I would agree. Because really to get the emotional, like to really get into someone's head as they are going through trauma and really be accurate in those emotions, you have to either have experienced those things or are experiencing those things while you're writing. Because I mean, I connected with that, again, not having had that same exact trauma happen, but understanding and coping through trauma in that certain way. And, you said all the things where, um, it's true when you focus on anything else and, especially physical, um, activities, that your brain, like, shuts off and, like, hyper focuses, which, helps with the healing. And I thought it was beautiful that her training turned from, like, "I'm going to do this because it helps me shut off that side of my brain," to, "I'm going to do this because I'm tired of feeling useless." Because that's kind of what the root of it was. She felt like she wasn't good enough. She didn't do things a certain way to prevent, and she could have been better here, could have been better there, couldn't didn't have to be so cruel, all these different things, boiled down to she felt useless in the moment. And how do I combat my trauma is to not be useless. And really just getting better and getting stronger. And I really loved how she, with Gwyn, she kind of anchored herself to Gwyn and vice versa. Having see that she also, and like all the other priestesses in the library, that they've gone through trauma. The sisterhood that she has with Gwyn and with Emery, who also went through a very different trauma, having her wings clipped and really just being a female shop owner, where in a male run area, having to go through all of that nonsense. And they grow together. So I really liked that aspect, even though it was like, they're just training, they're doing this technique, they're doing this. It didn't feel like it didn't feel slow because it was the Sarah J Maas was diving more into like the emotional element and the character building of it, not just the actions of the characters. And that kind of leads into, so they're training, right? Gwyn and Emery are training with Nesta, and then in Gwyn's research, actually technically Meryl's research, she talks about their
Meryl.
Valkyrie. Yeah, Meryl. So she talks about the Valkyrie, and the Valkyrie are these other winged warriors, but they're all female. So they end up training like the Valkyrie as they're going through, and then ultimately they get into the blood rite. So talk to me about like your thoughts of like these three girls who, or they're not girls, right? They're females in
Women.
this
Yeah.
world who have been training for under a year, and now they're in the blood rite. So what are your thoughts as, because I know a lot of readers had some issues with how this played out in terms of like plot holes. So what were your thoughts in the blood rite and these characters and, you know, the ultimate ending of the blood rite?
So my initial thought at first was like, I thought you were Cauldron Maid, so doesn't that mean your magic still works? Like, what's going on? How are you suddenly not working? And then it's like, oh, well, now it's tied to her bodily form, so it doesn't work because it's tied to her body form. Okay, then. And then I think too, and as far as like, can they hold their own in this situation? Well, the answer is no. That's why the weapons are placed there, because otherwise, the only other thing they have going for them is that Nesta wakes up first. So she wakes up first, thank God. And so like everybody else is sleeping. Otherwise, she'd have been dead in a heartbeat. So there's definitely like we have to give it a little bit of grace here. But then again, too, made up world. Let's remind ourselves. Everybody calm down. It is a made up world. Do we have some plot holes? And is there moments where, in the same thing with Feyre, there's a lot of people that are like, I can't believe she painted all over the cabin. That's me. The people.
Me, I am people.
Yeah, and then there's all the people who are like, well, the house is magical. If it wanted to erase itself, it would. Okay, well, yeah, but she still like chose to paint all over the cabin. Like, it's not really about the fact that the house can erase itself. It's the audacity to just paint all over someone's house that isn't yours. Anyway, so all that to say that some things, just like in any fantasy, right? I think somebody did this with Harry Potter back in the day where they were just like, yeah, so why didn't Harry just like call somebody? Like, they don't have phones. It's the 90s. I don't understand. Like, why did all this happen like this? Why didn't he just like use a phone? They existed in the Muggle world. Why does no one have phones? Like, different things like that are like simple things that you're like, oh, yeah, why didn't they? Or whatever. And so kind of like same thing, right? Is like, that's one example. But point being is that this series in particular and the Maasverse has had so much scrutiny over every nitty-gritty little tiny line on the page that I think it's far more than Sarah J Maas ever assumed it would be. And it might even be things that she didn't even think about it. And Rebecca Yarros is a perfect author example of this, where she has never before, she wrote military romances. She comes in and writes Fourth Wing, and the fantasy readers are like, what did this line on page blah, blah, blah mean? Like, what does that mean? She's like, well, the overall text and context means that, yeah, but you wrote this. So what does that mean?
I said.
Well, the overarching context is that, right. This is what I'm saying. So all that, suffice it to say that, like, realistically, are they getting dropped into this world without help? It doesn't work. But that's not what's happening. It's all being orchestrated by the queen anyway. And she's already getting help from the queen throughout this time as well, because these warriors are actually told not to hurt them. So there are certain ones that had buy-in as like, oh, we'll offer you this because the queen's involved. So short answer, is it really a plot hole? I don't really think so, because once you read the whole book, you know that it was planted, that the whole thing was orchestrated, that from the start, it wasn't really a true version of events as it would have been if the queen wasn't involved. So, you know, that's my thoughts.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Like, they wouldn't have been taken at all. Like, they wouldn't have.
Correct.
Like, yes, they qualified, but they wouldn't technically have been taken and thrown into the blood rite.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are like, these people, they train for like almost a year and they beat all the Illyrians, really. Which like,
But that's
yeah,
not what
okay.
happened.
I mean,
That wasn't exactly what happened.
Emery
They got
and
opportunistic moments, right?
exactly. They got opportunistic moments. They were able to outmaneuver at some points in time.
They had
Uh,
weapons. They had a guy that
yeah,
helped them. I
yeah.
mean, they had things that
Balthazar,
they would
which
not
we
have
will,
normally. Yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah,
No,
that guy.
exactly.
But
So, it do I understand the qualms that we may have, the issues? Yeah, okay. Does it make sense to keep the story going? Yes. How the blood rite went through, because the entire time I'm like, where the fuck is this queen? Like the entire time I'm like, where is she?
yeah, me too.
Like we think she's like like leaving, and it's like with Eris, and Eris is under control, and so it makes sense that she had to have appeared at this point in time, and the ending at the end of the blood rite. So technically Nesta doesn't win the blood rite because of the queen and all that stuff. So I thought it was an interesting
I think
turn of events, but
I mean, to counter that, I think the better question is why are they calling themselves a Valkyrie? And what does this mean for 6 and 7 and the Valkyries as a whole? And where do we see the series going with the Valkyries? Is one question I have in the war as a scope. And then for Nesta, for all the folks that think Nesta's a witch, and she did retain some of her magic at the end of the book, is there's people who think the Archeron sisters as a whole are witches, and that we're going to see some kind of, Elaine's the kind of ringleader of this, and we're going to see more of this. What does this mean for Nesta as far as the Valkyries? Is she this fearless leader in 6 and 7? Do we see them go on? That's my question. And how does that tie out? Because remember too, in Crescent City, you have a lot of different types of warriors. You've got angels, you have Hunt, who's an angel, and you have these different timelines and characters and creatures, a huge array of them in Crescent City that we don't fully see in Throne of Glass or in ACOTAR, but they're talked about. And then you have the mountain area, you have all these different things. There's a whole, and actually Down to Faye, one of our other podcasters that are on, she, one of the hosts there, she did an entire like whiteboard breakout. If you haven't seen this, I highly suggest you go to their page. But she does this whole breakout of like circling Midgard, the planet, and like how ACOTAR is also on Midgard, and how all the timelines kind of all wrap together. And how all the courts and like where everything's going, and why the Maasverse is like all interwoven, and where Throne of Glass like could fit in. And, like literally this whole huge, I'm not gonna go through it here, and also I'm a visual learner, so listeners are gonna be baffled as well, like if they're listening like me. It's too much. But they took the time and did all the things. And that's another question is like, okay, so if there's no way Sarah J Maas is getting rid of the Valkyries. She just made them. Like
Right.
they're gonna be doing something freaking awesome at some point, even though they just
Right.
did something cool. I think them as a group are gonna be some kind of critical part somewhere.
Right, because it's more than just those three. There are there are others that we're training, and yeah, who knows what that's going to entail. But yeah, they're gonna definitely be key, and because there's still, I mean, there's still the queens. There's still a lot to deal with, out in the human realm. So, or the continent. So yeah. So let's talk a little bit about in the end, we have the pregnancy trope. A lot of people have feelings about this. And so what were your thoughts on Feyre and her pregnancy, really the ending, that kind of ties into Nesta and her powers? I know we're kind of skipping a little bit of Nesta really digging through and getting the dread trove. That was a big aspect of the book too.
Right,
So
the
it wasn't
dread
just like
trove,
her,
yep.
yeah, it wasn't just her in the Valkyrie training. It was there was her
Right.
other real mission.
Well, and you have one of
was
the
getting
dead
the
trove
dread trove.
on. Yeah, and you have one of the dead trove, the mask, on the cover of Silver Flames.
Exactly.
And then there's people who think that it's orange because of the Autumn Court, and that each
Yes.
color of the books is going to represent a court, and that we're
Mhm.
representing a court with the colors, and that the thought of book colors for 6 and 7 have already been projected as well. Which, honestly, a side question, and I know we keep tangenting, but I really have to ask you. It is August. I am shocked we don't have a title. This book comes out in, like, 2 months.
I know. I keep seeing a lot of people are mad. Or not mad, maybe, like,
Yeah.
I don't know if mad is the word, and I don't mad's not the word I'm
it's
feeling
not mad. It's
either.
not the right word.
I
Yeah,
feel
it's
like I am, like, obviously, she can do what she wants.
I think it's a publisher.
I'm not getting,
it's the
like, hyped
publisher.
up. Is it? I know it's the publisher.
Mm.
I'm not getting hyped up, and maybe it's because I don't have any information, so it just feels like it's just dangling there. So until I get, like, you know, a title or, like, a brief synopsis or whatever, like, whatever inkling of what the story is going to be, I'm just like, okay, this is something that's coming.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like, you know, I would love a title. I would hope a title comes out soon. Uh, I know a lot of people have issues with the publisher for a multitude of reasons. With the title, let's redo the covers again. Let's divide the
They're gonna make
books.
as much money as they can.
Exactly. So yeah, I would like a title. A title would be nice. I would like to know what court, a court of what, and what is going on.
Yeah. Well, maybe it gives away too much, and that's why. Which I want to get to that point in a minute. So let me answer your first question. The thoughts on the pregnant Feyre. I thought this was very well done.
Okay.
I thought Rhysand hiding it from her was very Rhysand.
Very dickish,
I thought
but
Nesta
yes.
telling her was also the right decision. Whether she did it correctly is not the right way, but I agreed with Feyre and her saying, like, no, she was right to tell me it's my body and I would like to know what the fuck's going on in my own body. Let me, as an adult, make my own decision and don't fucking coddle me. I have literally slain all these people, saved this whole everybody, and you're not going to tell me what's going on in my own body? Like, the fuck is, what do you mean? And the way this also related, I think, to what women have felt through the ages of feeling less than yourself because now you're pregnant. Like, oh, you're not, maybe we have to, like, skate around certain things. Like, no. I am still a grown adult. I should still be entitled to my own thoughts and feelings on my body and what decisions that are going to be made about them. And I need to be know what those decisions are. And I think that's what she's saying here is that, but also this fear of what could happen, this fear of loss. Like, I could pass away, I could put my child at risk. Like, the things Feyre is going through, I can only imagine, like, the thoughts in her mind just being incredibly intense at this time, as she's trying to navigate that. And she doesn't know that for a little bit. And that was Rhys's argument, was like, well, I don't want to tell her because I don't want to stress her out. She needs to have as little bit of stress as possible right now, as, you know, as these things happen. And granted, I understand his perspective. I don't agree with it. And I'm in Camp Nesta's team for that, for sure. And as someone who's experienced, you know, multiple losses, I think that whether it's a risk, it's always a risk. It's always a risk. You never know what's going to happen. You can never know if things are going to go perfectly well. You don't know what's going to happen. It's still, we're in 2026 and pregnancy is still terrifying.
Yes.
It just is.
Yeah. I mean, and then, you know, Sarah J Maas wrote this because, or not because, but she poured her own traumatic pregnancy and traumatic delivery into this, and people still hate this, like, that whole, like, ending scene. I'm like,
oh, I won't
literal,
read it because it's a pregnancy trope. Like, please.
It's like, this is her literal trauma that she's writing into that. And, like, sure, this is too real world. There are a lot of like, so is trauma's too real world. Are we really not going to I don't agree with that stance. And obviously, you know, we're both mothers, so and maybe people who
maybe feel it's too harshly.
Mothers, well, yeah, having, you know, pushed out a 8-pound baby out of my body, I would have been very furious if my husband was like, oh, by the way, you could die, and I'm not going to tell you this whole time because I don't want to stress you out. It's like, how the fuck dare you? Like, this is me and my child. I don't see you changing your body. I don't see you going through all these things. Like, you don't have You don't get that say. And that happens in hospitals, like, nowadays. Like, doctors will, like, leave the patient out because, we don't wanna stress you out. It's like, no. Or they'll take something's going on with the baby and no one's communicating. I mean, that happened to, like, my own when I delivered my baby, this past December, his cord was wrapped around his neck twice. They didn't say anything to me until he was fine. It's like, okay, I guess it's okay. He's fine now, but, like,
Yeah,
no
right,
one
like, what are you gonna
communicated
do?
during.
Right.
Exactly.
But I think the thought is, like, what are we gonna do to change it so we don't wanna stress
Mhm.
the patient out? Because let's
Right.
try to see if we can resolve it so that it doesn't increase heart rate, it doesn't endanger the baby further.
Right.
And I can understand that to a certain point, but at some point you're gonna have to say some shit. Like,
Exactly.
where's the line in the sand of, like, reasonableness? And I think that's
Mhm.
where she kept it a secret. Nesta kept it a secret at first. She protected her sister at first. It wasn't until later in the pregnancy where she was really upset. She was already triggered by other things that she was pissed about. But then she was
Mhm.
also just like, Feyre's, like, far along now. We need to tell her. Like,
Mhm.
she at this point,
She's, like,
somebody needs to
waddling.
tell her what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, somebody needs to tell her what's happening. And so, two notes. The first one going back to your original statement about how, people who don't like the pregnancy trope or whatever because it's too real world. Well, first and foremost, that falls under the same category as I don't recognize myself as the main character, therefore I didn't like the book. That falls under that category. It also falls under the category of, oh, the point of view is in first person. I wouldn't choose to do those things, therefore I don't like the book. Like, you cannot like a trope but to kind of like put the whole series into a bucket of like, oh, it has pregnancy trope, therefore I'm not going to read it. You as a reader absolutely have that right to do that. I'm just, as my own judge of character, putting you in this bucket for
Yeah.
myself. So that's just me. And I
That's
am
fair.
entitled to that opinion. So just saying. You can
Okay.
have your own opinions of that. That's my opinion, is that if you're going to take the entire book dunk it into, oh, it has one trope that I'm unwilling to even consider, that's your loss, in my opinion. That's your loss.
No, I would agree. I would agree. Just, like, why, and I feel like people do that because romantasy has become this genre, or fantasy, romantasy has become this, like, genre where we rely on the tropes. And so people are like, well, I'm going to write it off because it has this one trope. It's like, a book isn't their tropes. Like, yes, books
Correct.
utilize tropes, but they aren't, like, that's not the epitome of the book, is their trope. Like, enemies to lovers is not the epitome of the book. Fae isn't the epitome of the book. So you're
Right.
really writing off series, and like, good series, because of just one thing. And again, like you said,
Mhm.
everyone has their rights and free will and whatnot. Are they wrong?
No, but I think that
Yeah,
falls
maybe.
that's a really good down the rabbit hole segment that we could do, is the same thing that we've talked about repeatedly, which is that when you put things in a genre, or you put things in a subgenre, or you put things only into tropes, you are limiting that author.
Mhm.
You're
Absolutely.
limiting them. You're literally limiting them to a trope or a subgenre or whatever. And we talked about that when we covered Anathema. We talked about how that book is a fantasy book. It is dark and it has romance, but it's fantasy. It is
Yes.
a lot of fantasy.
Mhm.
And to oversimplify it into breaking it into smaller tropes like that, I think that you limit readers, and you
Agreed.
limit its audience. But we can talk about that another time. So I agree
Yeah.
with you, is what I'm saying, and that you
Okay.
can't just say pregnancy trope and then label the whole book as like, oh, I hated it because it had a pregnancy trope. Well, it's oversimplistic. You're oversimplifying the entire
I can
story.
already see the
So
one-star
it's, ugh.
reviews. I can already see them.
But also, so on that note though, one thing that was interesting that I forgot entirely about when I did a reread was that Nesta fixed herself so that her and Cassian could have a winged baby in the future. Totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Completely forgot. And she even mentions that she wants to have a kid. So do you think in future books we could see a pregnant Nesta? I could see
Yeah.
SJM saying, "Fuck it, I'm doing it again. I don't even care."
Yeah.
I could totally
Probably.
see that.
Right, because it would be from, I mean, I don't think we're gonna get Nessa's perspective again. Maybe a couple of chapters, but I don't think we're gonna get a whole book in her perspective again. But I can see her also being pregnant. Now, that leads to, has she already, from the time jump? Because remember, these worlds interweave. In the end of Crescent City, she clearly is not pregnant. And that's like, I would say like it's a pretty significant time jump because she's working with Azriel. She's still like the way she carries herself is very different. So I think there's a time jump um from Silver Flames to then. Has she already been pregnant?
When she meets with Bryce.
Or yeah, when she meets with Bryce.
Crescent City spoiler. That's a
yes.
major Crescent City spoiler. So going forward,
Yes.
if you have not read, we already warned you, but
Again,
to point out this, you will.
Warnings are
Again, warning
actually a
you.
thing.
Yes.
People who ignore warnings get in trouble. So, and at this point, there's a spoiler. So yeah, when Bryce meets up with Nesta, she's clearly not pregnant, so it could happen after that timeline, or maybe it already happened before that timeline, and there's already a little baby.
Maybe there's cousins. We
But
got cousins over here.
An important thing to point out is that she did not change her lane at all.
She did not.
I feel like
just her and Feyre.
Just her and Feyre. And that could be because Elaine isn't with an Illyrian. I feel like, just in case, I think Nesta's seen a lot.
I think Nesta's seen a lot in the Cauldron. I think our girl has seen a lot more than she's saying. A lot more.
Of course.
Yeah.
So obviously, I feel like that eliminates any sort of Elaine Azriel. I mean, obviously, in the end of this novel.
So first, tell us what the theory is. What's the theory about Elaine and Azriel? Because I think it squashes that too completely. I think this totally squashes the Elaine Azriel fandom line as well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay, so this squashes it, and then another one is so Gwyn. Gwyn is a singer. Gwyn, which we see she sings in the choir. Would it be called a choir for the priests? At the very end of this book, there's a moment between Azriel and Gwyn, and something clicks into place. There is a clicking into place in terms of like Azriel's perspective. So obviously that leads to Azriel not being with Elaine. Azriel, the shadow singer, is likely going to be with Gwyn, the singer. Sunshine singer, because she's bright and sunshine. The light singer, so you be. So that's what I think. Just because there was a mention of like there's just a connection there. So that's what I think. That this completely squashes Elaine and Azriel. I think they're just platonic friends, which God forbid we have platonic friends. So, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah. I also think Gwyn is interesting for the balance piece, right? But she is also part nymph. She's not high fae either. There's a part of her that's not fully, she's part nymph. Her mother was half. It's a whole thing as to how she became who she was. She's been through all this trauma. Gwyn's had a lot. There's a lot of things that have happened with her. And I think you're spot on that she could be a fated mate and that they haven't seen each other because of all the things that led up to it. Azriel would have never met Gwyn if it wasn't for Nesta. He may have seen her in passing, and he saw her in the when he saved her initially. But for any more interaction to happen, it doesn't happen. But it is kind of weird because that piece is like missing. So why hasn't that been there? But I also think it's the same reason that Nesta didn't acknowledge hers either, as Azriel is a person who's been through a lot, and as such, he fully respects Gwyn's story because he witnessed it. And I think that he would put anyone else ahead. Like she needs to work through that first, and that isn't even something that would occur to him, even if something like felt good or whatever. I don't think he would acknowledge that. He would acknowledge what she needs first. Which we see his character.
Yeah. I mean, you see that.
But his shadow's reacting around her. Yeah, but his shadow's reacting around her. All these other things that kind of tie to her. Maybe there's something there. We'll have to see.
There's also, so you mentioned Gwyn's family, and we know that, so Gwyn was a product of her father from the Great Rite in the Spring Court. So there is this theory that Gwyn's father is actually Tamlin, who has participated. So, because the Great Rite, if we remember the Great Rite,
interesting,
all the way back to ACOTAR. And that is when, we celebrate the spring equinox and or spring solstice. And he has to take someone into like the cave, and there's a choice, and they do the thing. This is when Feyre was told to be like she couldn't be there, and this is where she meets Rhysand because she sneaks out anyway. So this whole event, so it's known, or Gwyn mentions that her father, or her mother got pregnant during the Great Rite in the
Right.
Spring Court. Now,
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily mean she participated in the Great
Talon
Rite
might.
with, yes,
Right.
with Tamlin, because he would have been the High Lord at that time. But, there's all other types of things that are happening, and other people are, doing the deed during that time because, let's celebrate fertility and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But there are theories that Gwyn's father is actually Tamlin.
Maybe. Could it also be Lucian? Or someone else?
He's described as blonde, though.
Oh, okay.
So I feel
don't
like
know.
if it was Lucian, he could
There's a
have
lot of
been like the
theories out
redhead.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I think
Okay.
it's a reach.
Okay.
I don't know if SJM thought that far. We'll have to see. But maybe she
Maybe.
did, and I'm totally underestimating her, which is likely too. So who
Um,
knows? But I think it's a good one to consider. And I do think that there's a reason we don't know. That it probably will come up later because it seems entirely deliberate that she would not know something
place her
like
in the
that.
Spring Court. Yeah. And like, why would she
It's a
be
strange.
placed
There's
that way?
something there. I don't know if it's
Agreed.
Tamlin, but there's something there.
All right.
Sure.
Now, before we fully get into theories, because that's kind of where we're kind of heading down. I know that's or down the rabbit hole. Let's talk a little bit more about the Dread Trove, because with Nesta's powers being cauldron made, the Dread Trove was also made. So this is why she has this connection to finding the mask, the harp, and all the other things, and the fact that she can make her own Dread Trove, which is utterly terrifying in terms of like what this world needs. We need more of these things that can just destroy everyone. So let's talk about the Dread Trove, that aspect of the storyline, and maybe thoughts on how the Dread Trove came to be, because obviously they were made. Who made them? Or their thoughts?
Yeah, the Dread Trove predates the existing world, right? So it's been around for a long time. The Dread Trove is also part of the cauldron, and then you have the mother who re-gifts Nesta back some of her power after she gives her power to save her sister. And also gives her power to save her own anatomy, because knowing that she's made it to Cassian, she needs to basically fix herself. So there's this, So there's this relationship that we hear about with the mother, and she talks about this because it is essentially unheard of. She can speak to, and the mother has spoken to her, which is the goddess of the whole, like, everything is speaking to her, the creator, essentially. So if you go back and you listen to that clip, like we mentioned earlier, it's really good. It breaks it all down. And honestly, there's a lot to this, so it takes a hot minute to digest. So thank you to them for putting this together. The Daglin created the Dead Trove originally. So Nesta's not the first one to have had this power, or to have been able to do this, or to wield the cauldron, as we've seen many times. She's just the only one who has, like, taken from it.
Right.
You know, everyone does the Nesta finger out of the cauldron now. It's like definitely like a whole thing.
Yeah.
To answer your question, the Daglin are the original ones. So
Right.
Michelle, tell us about the Daglin again. Remind us who they are.
So the Daglin is Crescent City, which I believe the Vogue, which is from Throne of Glass, they're the same type of people. So these are the they're like described as like these high power beings that basically they come from different worlds, come from different universes. They can universe jump, and they are conquerors, and that's where we have Maeve. In Throne of Glass, Maeve was a Vogue. She kind of sought refugee in the Throne of Glass world. Also not, and then the Daglin are what's Crescent City's version of that. So
Asteria,
yeah, the
which are
Siri.
basically the creators of, they control the universes and can move around. Yeah.
Yes, evil Stiri. But yeah,
Oh
okay.
yeah, super.
And then so last thoughts in terms of like this plot as a whole. So if you remember, in the very end, Feyre and Rhys make a pact that if one dies, the other dies. And obviously
dumb.
this is traumatic for everyone because everyone thought Feyre was about to die. She was literally bleeding out, and everyone knew that Rhys-Anne would go too. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that they're going to try to break that pact, find a way to break that pact? Or do we think that there could be some awful endings at the end of the series?
Now that they have a son, I wonder if the stakes are different for them and that they rethink what they've already, the bargain that they've already made. Maybe they make a bargain over the bargain. Because remember, Fey words that create the bargain are very specific. So maybe they create something else that offshoots that bargain. But I do think that it will come up for sure.
Oh,
It will definitely come up again. It is relevant here. You can't forget about it. You have to remember that they have this. One dies, the other dies. Maybe this plays into how the Night Court risks them or doesn't risk them in the future. And how the decision that they'll have to make collectively as a team becomes different versus how they would have responded if they could individually, fight the challenge that they have. Or does it mean that they stay together more often now because they have a son, first of all, but also the risk of one is the risk of all three, because you're not going to leave Nyx parentless. So what does that look like? I do think, I don't know if they'll necessarily break the pact, but I do think that there will be deliberateness to how they respond to any conflict going forward because they can no longer face it the same way they have historically. So dividing them up is not going to be the way that they win. And to be fair, I think dividing them up has never really been successful anyway. One was always so concerned about the other that it didn't really work. And we've seen that with other partners in other series and other things that when they separate, they're not as successful as they are when they're together. It's actually a Twilight reference too. If you remember correctly. So it isn't the first time we've seen that type of trope, but I think that will be relevant for sure going forward.
I agree in the relevance. I think because remember, they're still trying to find a way to free the other human queen, right? Vasa. They're still trying to find a way to free Vasa. Yep. So I think that's going to play a part. How they break her curse is going to be how they break that pact. So when they find, because those would be like two questions. I feel like they would kind of be two sides of the same coin,
because they're tied together.
Yeah. So I think if they free Vasa, they can free themselves from that pact. And now I honestly don't think they would do it. I mean, they're just so emotionally irrational around each other. I mean, I think they should. I think if they want to, or if they Vasa is the key to doing that. But just seeing how their characters are, they're so like they get so wrapped up in each other and they lose sight of a lot of things because when the other is concerned, and that's where Amryn gets really pissed off and calls him stupid all the time because their emotions are very even though he's like 500
like blinding him.
Yeah, exactly. Even though they're like he's 500 years old, they act like they're like 16. And in terms of like their irrationality and love, so which mating bond. But yeah, I think Vasa would be the key if they were to break that pact. So I guess
okay. Yeah. It leads us to down the rabbit hole. One question I have for you before we move on is twofold. One you already answered, which is you sort of answered it, but first question is, how many books do you think will be in the final series of ACOTAR as a whole? First question. Okay. Second question, follow-up question to that. Who do we think we're following in 6 and 7?
Is your question books in terms of installments or like books as a whole? Okay. So because she said, if I think back to Sarah J Maas's interview with Call Her Daddy, 6, 7, and 8 are like a collective installment of technically they're like a collective story and they're installment of 3. I think she's gonna have 2 of those. If she has more, like what the fuck is this Zodiac Academy? Like, are we gonna have
So like
20
11
books?
books in total?
Yeah, I think she would be. I would think because she, and I know technically if I go with the thought of like she likes 3s together, then technically we should have like 2 more of Nesta's perspective. But I just feel like Nesta's story seems way too complete. But I feel like she does like to lean into like the 3s, you know. So I think we would have a total of 6 more books. What and then whose perspective
Who do
is
we
in.
follow? Yeah, next books.
So I initially
6
thought
and
it's
7.
going to be Elaine and Azriel, but she had said that there are a lot of storylines and a lot of perspectives that she wants to put into these books in the Call Her Daddy podcast. So I think she tried to do in one book. She tried to do more than just Elaine and Azriel, just because those are the last 2 and that's the last sister, and then he's the last one of like the Bat Boys. But I think because she added so many other perspectives, I think we're getting Elaine, we're getting Azriel, I think we're getting Lucian, and we're gonna get more. Those are my 4, and it might be like 7 and 8, like not all in 7 and not all in 8, but I think in the 2, those are 4 of the perspectives we're gonna get. Because she does write multiple POVs. She doesn't do so as much in ACOTAR, but if you see in Crescent City, like, you get a lot of POVs in Crescent City. So she's able, and the same thing in TOG, and she's able to do it pretty effectively in developing the storyline. And just because Moore's been fucking around in the Mortal Lands, like, where is she? And we need Elaine. And then, obviously, the mate would be Lucian, but that leaves Azriel. So if we get Azriel's perspective, we'd likely get Gwyn's too. So I guess that's 5 perspectives. Now I'm just talking to myself, like talking there more. So those are the 5. I'm sticking with those 5. So what about you? What do you think?
Wow. I think we're gonna have 3 more. I think 6, 7, and 8 are all gonna be Nesta and Cassian.
Okay.
And I think you're gonna have interwoven plots or POVs within them. But I think they're still gonna be our main narrators. And the reason I think this is because of the end of this book. I don't think Nesta's story or POV is done. And I think it's because Feyre and Rhys have this family unit, and because of their bond that they have, they can't really be separated. I think Nesta and Cassian's story is very different, and what they do and their roles they play are very different. But I do think we're going to get the other POVs interwoven, like you said. So, but I still think it's going to be primarily Nesta and Cassian's story. So there was one quote that I wanted to use here that is at the end of this book that I text you and was like, we're going to talk about this on the podcast, where I was like, I believe specifically that it is going to be Nesta's book, and this Nesta's books and Cassian's books coming up. So it does seem to wrap up like really nicely in a neat bow at the end of this book, but we don't get the wedding. I think SJM is going to pick up right where she left off. We get a description of how Rhys is going to blow all this money on this big, gorgeous wedding. And I want to see Nesta's dress. I want to know what's going on. And I think other fans might want to as well. And so I think we're going to pick up right at Nesta Cassian wedding. And she also makes it a point to discuss specifically that there's all this stuff that still needs to get done. Like, we're going to have this wedding ceremony, but let's not forget that we have all these things going on. I think someone's going to crash the wedding. I think book 6 opens. Yes. I think someone's going to come in and crash this wedding. And I think it's just going to explode the beginning of 6. And everything's going to pop off like from there. Because it doesn't make sense for our timeline to jump too far. And we already know that Feyre just had a baby, you know? It's not going to be about her or Rhys. I think Cassian Nesta's story is still not completely done. There's a POV from Cassian's perspective right before Nesta's last chapter. And it talks about they would walk down whatever road lay ahead of them, and he's talking to Eris, and Eris is their ally, and all these things, right? So there's this specific chapter that talks about him. And knowing SJM in her previous books and the series as a whole, I think she's picking up right where she left off. And I think that makes sense to me, that the next thing we're going to see is the Cassie and Nesta wedding. And we're going to get a full wedding production. Because we didn't get one with Feyre and Rhys. The only one we got for Feyre was a hot mess. Now, Cassian are going to get one, but I think that someone's going to interrupt it in a similar fashion that Rhys interrupted Pharaoh's.
Okay.
But I think
So your
this
idea
time
is
it's going to be
3,
different.
3, 3. So there's going to be 9 books total, you think?
I think
3, 3,
Nesta
3?
will be 4. I think her books
Okay.
will be 4, and then there'll be 3 or 4 for Elaine.
Okay.
Because really, Feyre gets 4.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be 4,
There's
4,
the
4.
novella.
So I think there's going to be
Okay.
12 in total.
Okay. I mean, okay, that logic makes sense. So I agree with your thought process. That makes sense. Like, if we're going to be neat and have the 4, 4, 4, 3 novella, 3 novella, that leads into it. That makes sense. It does make sense to also have pick up where we left off, because she doesn't do the time gaps. There is in the Books a Million edition, there's an Azriel bonus chapter that leads into his connection with Gwyn, which I referenced a little bit earlier. And I forgot that this was a bonus chapter and not part of like the original storyline as a whole. So that's why I'm thinking that, okay, maybe it is and this is it's set during solstice, and there is like a glimpse with Azriel, who as Gwyn is leaving, there's like the clicking. So that's what I was referencing earlier, kind of like similar to a mating bond type of clicking. So my question is, why would she include an Azriel bonus chapter if we don't get an Azriel POV in this book? So
I think we totally do. I agree with you. I think we do get an Azriel bonus.
Okay.
Because I think there's also foreshadowing for that too, because Nesta has her spicy moment where she's like, oh, she would share basically with Azriel as well. So, and then another thing further proving your point is that in Crescent City at the end, when Nesta meets with Bryce, Azriel's with her. So she's not by herself.
Open marriage?
I mean, I don't know. We can all, but
we can all,
who knows?
Speculate
On that. But I think that regardless of that piece of it, we know Nesta's not opposed, that's for sure. But she would never, Cassian's definitely her mate, but she would definitely be open to. She wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But I mean, Helian's in the same boat too. Like, there's a lot of like nobody. There's definitely some openness here. But that alone, I do think that there's several instances that point to the fact that Azriel will have his own POVs going forward.
Okay, they're just not going to be tied to Elaine in any way.
I don't think so.
They're going to be more.
No,
they're going to be more tied to.
I think Elaine has her own thing going on. Yeah.
Nesta, Elaine and Lucian.
I think he's kind to her because of the trauma, but I don't think that there's a romantic. Maybe she has a crush or something, but I don't think Azriel has any romantic feelings there.
Right. And I don't think she does either. It doesn't seem her actions to him don't seem romantic at all. It seems genuine in terms of like your friend, and
kindness.
I appreciate you and what you're doing to me. Or doing for me. So yeah, I would agree that Nesta I think Nesta could be like her book series is done, but your thought process does make sense to me as well. Getting the whole 4, 4, and 4 and having more Nesta Cassian POV and then interwoven with the other characters. I think we're gonna see a lot more of Azriel, and it'd be nice to see more of like Gwyn as well, but maybe that'll be like later on down the line. But S.J. Maas is known to like start trickling in different POV chapters as like the books go on from a certain character's perspective. So
yeah, and I think too, with the arduous nature that this book has been on her, it's probably been one of her most challenging to write, and I think she's already had said that. And so now being broken up into multiple books and just her whole plan of like how it was going to be is I think there's a lot. She's created so much by now that she's even herself having to go back. I'm sure she has a notebook. We saw her composition book of how she's going to plot it all out. So there's definitely a lot of thought process to this. And I think we're going to see lots of things start to slowly come together. I don't think it will be in book 6 though. I do think book 6 will still truly be tied to ACOTAR, and we're going to start getting pieces of it. And like maybe the whole thing doesn't really complete until the way last books, just as in Kingdom of Ash type of thing, where we really
Right.
start to see things, because I think there's a lot more to the story yet, and we don't have it all yet. I think we're several years out from being this series ever
Oh,
being
I
close to
think
being
we're more
complete.
than several years out, especially since,
Mm-hmm.
Crescent City 4 still needs to be done as well. And since she already like tied the ACOTAR and Crescent City storylines together, there's going to be more of that. I can't imagine that just being like a one-off. There has to be more interweaving. So, yeah, I don't think the
Yeah,
series is going to be done in this decade. Like in the
that's
20s.
fair.
It's going to be
Yeah.
probably go into the 30s as well.
Yeah, the 2030s.
2030s.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree. Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're gonna go down the rabbit hole now, and this great website created a Maasverse 20 top 20 theories for the Maasverse. So again, spoiler warning: if you haven't read Throne of Glass, Crescent City, or ACOTAR, you can stop here. Should have stopped earlier actually, but I mean
Stop
you should
after
go
the
ahead and
drink,
stop now.
honestly.
Yeah, literally. All right, so I'm gonna run through these theories. Some of these we've already talked about, but I'm gonna mention them real quick. So the bone carver. We know the bone carver is not of this world. One of the theories is that the bone carver is actually also the sin eater from Throne of Glass. The sin eater
Okay.
carves sins into bones, quite similarly to the bone carver for carving death. So they're believed to be tied. Another one, the Archeron sisters have a witch bloodline. We talked about this a
We've
little
talked
bit.
about that a lot.
And then are believed to have witch bloodlines through their mother, because we don't know much about Mrs. Archeron. And so there's some questions to what that could be. It also is weird to me that Feyre randomly is living this close to the wall. I know she's a merchant's daughter and all of this, but how the heck does she end up there versus being on the continent versus all the other things? Like, what, I know we have the story, but there's definitely gaps in time.
Right.
Why he didn't seek help? Why didn't her mom get what she needed? We need more to the story. We don't have the full picture. It's possible that there could be some magical bloodline in there that we don't know about. Maybe she was in hiding and she's like, absolutely not. You're not going to go find all these people because I'm hiding out from something else.
Right.
Somebody's after us. Who knows? He didn't really get any last words, as we well know, of how their father passed away. So we don't know. So there's possibly some ancient bloodlines, magical bloodlines, maybe even predating their mom or father that we don't know about. So there's possibility to that. Then there's time travel. We talked about this quite a bit. We know for a fact that they can move worlds because Nesta again visits Bryce. And I also think this is why it's going to be Nesta and Cassian's and maybe Azriel's books going forward in the next couple books, is because why did she have us see Nesta basically move through worlds?
Right.
She still has the power of the mother. She was gifted that power back, and she still has the power of the cauldron. She admits it's not as strong, but I honestly think that's kind of a good thing, because it was so powerful that it was overwhelming her. She couldn't function with the level of power the cauldron had given her. So I think now she has like the right amount. And she is able to like maybe do something with this now. And as
Okay.
we know, they figure out she uses the harp. The harp is such a key
The
thing
harp,
that we
yep.
didn't talk about fully. But we also know we absolutely can time travel because of the harp.
The
She
harp.
slows down time. She stops time. The harp, I think, is going to be such a critical part of the next few books. And I think that how Nesta can specifically still wield this item is going to be such a very crucial part of how this story continues to unfold.
Agreed.
So I agree with this theory. I don't think it's actually a theory because it's a fact. Nesta uses the harp in the 5th book. So
Yeah.
the idea of time travel is a thing. How they move time and control it, different thing. But I think she kind of has a grasp on it because she quickly figures out that how she moves from where she's at from the prison to where Cassian is, and how much she needs to pluck each thing and to move to winnow, and also how she can pause time and knowing which string that would be. Clearly Nesta has some kind of other tie to the Trove items than somebody else would. So I'm very curious to see where that takes her and Cassian and the whole team as they, Avengers style go about saving everybody. Because that's kind of how I picture this too. is it's like a whole gang of gangs all here. We've got everybody. They all got different things that they're going to bring to the table. One of the other theories that I think is also true as well is that they're all in the same world. That Prythian and where Crescent City takes place is Midgard. They're on the same planet. It all is in the same as a whole, and that the Maasverse is all connected. I think, again, this is proven in Crescent City, but it's further proven in what we, I think, are going to see continue, and that this will start to work out. This one we talked about just a few minutes ago, which is the Asteri, Daglan, and Volg are the same beings. So this is a very popular one from Crescent City. Daglan are from Tog. Volg are from Tog as well. And, you know, we have this Lanthus, which is the critical person that, or thing, whatever being, that gets released from the prison that's protecting the harp, has this whole, and that scene was crazy, especially listening to it, how graphic he was, Lanthus. Holy cow. How he wanted the crown just for himself, and they would have all the Trove, and they've been waiting for all of this, and he's been waiting and waiting. And that Lanthus is 15,000 years old. And so this kind of speaks to the different timelines of where these things could have interconnected. And that's part of it. So there's another one. Elaine will be the queen of hell. Very interesting theory. Suggests that Elaine Archeron from ACOTAR will be the queen of hell. Hel.
Interesting.
While Nesta took the power of death from the cauldron, Elaine is believed to have the power of life. So this is a theory that thinks that she represents Maiden in the Maiden, Mother, and Crone archetype, potentially ruling over hell with a Hades-like partner. So I don't know who this would be, but it could be why people think that she's mated to Azriel, but we know that that's not who Azriel is. No. And I actually think Elaine's mate is going to be like a high fae type. I really believe that. Or higher than that. Somewhere it makes sense logically from a perspective of like, who is everyone going to get set up with? That's what I think. I don't think, even though she's mated to, we know that she's mated to Lucian, I don't know if that's going to happen. And that maybe she has a different type of bond somewhere else. I don't know. Do you think she's going to end up with Lucian?
That's hard to tell because we don't have her. I know zero about Elaine except how she knows how to grow flowers instead of fruit. You know, I literally know nothing about her and that she has visions. I
do we think that we just don't know Lucian's role? Like,
I would like to think that Elaine doesn't. Just to give like Lucian a something, that Elaine doesn't entirely reject him. But I think Sarah J Maas does plant that idea to allow Elaine to reject him, because and give her that sort of choice. I would like for her to end up with Lucian just because Lucian's good. He's been in shitty situations and he's shown loyalty to the wrong person, but he's not inherently bad. So that's hard for me to tell because I don't know who else, like there's no one else that comes to mind that she should be with, at least in what we see now, unless that goes into the universes intertwining and, you know, she ends up with someone in like Crescent City or, you know, in that sort of manner.
Okay. Okay.
What?
I'm just thinking.
What are your thoughts?
I'm going with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we don't know. Lucian gets skated over, and I don't think we know enough about either of them to truly.
Exactly. We don't know anything about them. That's why we need their point of view. It's hard to tell who either of them are going to end up with. Unless we have their point of view, and the bare skim of a point of view we get is when Feyre enters his mind, and that's the only reason why we know the mating bond even exists, but we don't know anything about these two characters besides surface level historical stuff that other people's perspectives are. So I don't. It's hard for me to point what Elaine. I know a lot of people are leading into the drawers, right? The drawers, they are supposed to make sense because Feyre, she drew stars and she ended up in the night court. right? So Elaine, who likes flowers, she's going to end up in the spring court because that's what the drawer suggests. And there's like theories that
But where is Nesta supposed to end up then? If
Nesta,
hers is flames.
well, the flames would then represent the autumn court technically. So that's why people lead into like Nesta and Eris and how like Eris is going to disrupt things.
That's the next theory.
Yeah.
So the next theory is that when Elaine was predicting Cassian's death, because she has these seer moments, that the death wasn't actually at the battle that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
It was a future battle that he's going to not make it out of. And that leads to the question of like, does everyone live in this series? Is this going to be where she keeps all of her main characters and everybody makes it out? Cassian had a very close call. Do we think he's going to make it through the next one? And the theory is, and I hate this theory, but the theory is that Nesta ultimately has Eris as a mate, and that they end up together and she becomes Lady of the Dusk Court. So I don't
court.
That's what it says. Yeah.
But how would Eris end up at the Dusk Court? Because Eris is
doesn't say
Autumn
that part.
Court.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I know.
So I think
it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know that I buy into.
I don't agree with the Dusk Court part. I think Cassian dies. Elaine predicted it. Sarah J Maas wouldn't put that there, but Cassian dies. I don't know at what point in time he dies, but Cassian dies. He has to, unless we're saying Elaine isn't a seer, and Elaine's powers are wrong, which is not what. I don't think that goes with how Sarah J Maas's writing is. So Cassian is gonna die, and there are also points that there's that chemistry between Nesta and Eris specifically was like, I want her. So Eris, I feel like your point that Eris interrupting their wedding is going to be very valid because Eris definitely wants Nesta for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
he has, because they had that whole thing in this book where there was that whole setup where he danced with her and there was this whole moment. Right.
So, but I don't know at what point. I think it will be very much towards the end when if Cassian dies or when Cassian dies, and Elaine somehow ends up in the Autumn Court, because the Autumn Court is the one that represents fire. That's gonna be like towards like the end.
I refuse to accept that.
That is okay. These are just theories.
Yeah. One other theory is that Rhysand's sister is Rune's mother from Crescent City.
I've heard that one. Yeah.
This is ACOTAR. The Rhys's sister from ACOTAR is actually Rune Danon's mother in Crescent City. Would connect the two series even more closely, suggest a shared family lineage. But I do think it makes sense because we do know Rhys has a sister. And we also know that he knows way more about the worlds than he's saying and how interconnected they are. And that part of why he's so powerful is because he knows this and he knows where things pass. And we know this with Elaine as she passes through worlds and touches Rhys's hand. There's that Starfall piece that there's just a lot there he knows about that we need to figure out. Yeah.
Right. And there's also like his library. The multiple universes, which is what Meryl was researching, that's in his library. So clearly he understands the terms are going to be different. I don't know if it's going to be world walking or, keys or whatever. But, and then the fact that Azriel has truth teller, there's a key. He has to know what's going on there. Yep. So yeah, that would make sense that, that connection is there.
Plus truth teller and all the things tied to that. Plus just everything Azriel knows. He knows a lot. I think they both know a lot that we haven't needed to know yet. There's a theory about when the 13, again, massive TOG spoilers. Thank you. Last time I'm saying this. Some fans theorize that when the 13 performed the yielding in Throne of Glass, that they didn't actually die, but they opened gates to another realm. And it would mean that Briar, a member of the 13, is the same Briar in ACOTAR. And it suggests that the yielding was a powerful magical act that transcended death and allowing the 13 to continue to form in other worlds. I like this theory.
Interesting. That would make me happy.
Yes,
That
because I was
whole
devastated in Kingdom of Ash. I was barely functioning after reading that.
I was like
I was in a state.
sobbing. Like,
yeah, it was a
live
hot
Manon,
mess.
live. I'm like,
Yeah.
that would make me happy.
Yeah.
But then that would also lead, because there's theories that Moore is a witch as well, and she's the last line of defense because of that specific power. And so she can also transcend death and world jump. So
Well, and also it's interesting because it gives Moore is another one, the Morgan. There's a reason why we don't know everything about her, and that we don't even really know all of Moore's powers or anything like that. So I'm very interested to see more of Moore. I hate saying that, but yeah. All right. So there's another one that's fans speculate the Autumn King from Crescent City is related to the High Lords of the Autumn Court in ACOTAR. Both rulers exhibit a fiery temperament, control over autumnal powers, and act for strict and fairly ruthless leadership. Two might be distant relatives or even part of the same ancient family tree. It could explain similarities in their ruling styles, magic traits, etc.
that makes sense.
I think that could have, yeah. Yeah. So there's more, but those are pretty much the big overarching ones. Most of them we've already basically discussed here.
Yeah.
I am very, very excited for, obviously, for 6 and 7, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun regardless of what happens. That said, books 6 and 7 respectively release October 27th is ACOTAR 6, January 12th, 2027 is ACOTAR. And I am very excited. Part of me so desperately wants to not read ACOTAR 6 when it comes out. Desperately. Because I'm like, I want to wait till 7. So I know
that might
where I'm
right.
at.
That might
But
be the one I will delay.
Yeah.
No, well, there's so many releases this fall. Honestly, ACOTAR will probably be the one I will delay the most, just so I can get the other releases, down. And so I'm not having so much of a gap between 6 and 7. So I will probably delay that the most.
Though. We could avoid.
We could
have
scroll.
To avoid social media entirely.
Listen, I will scroll. I don't want to.
Godspeed.
I don't want to fast read this just because
I
I'm
don't
afraid
either.
of spoilers on the internet.
Yeah, that's fair.
I ask that anyone who's listening to this please have some, proper etiquette in terms of spoilers. I know it is very tempting to make reels.
Who are going to be the problem?
No, of course
not our listeners. Yeah,
but I know a lot of people.
Tell your friends.
Let me make the first. Yeah, tell your friends. Let me make the first reel, and this is gonna have so many views. And please have a spoiler countdown. That would be helpful. Thanks. So we can all enjoy this in a proper manner. So,
yes. Before we wrap down the rabbit hole and kind of close out all of our ACOTAR stuff, first of all, I want to show you my shirt, which you've seen because you have one. Wreck My Plans. This is from the Lost Bros, right? So it's a Taylor Swift ACOTAR Maasverse crossover. We've got signatures from Azriel, Hunt, Lorcan, Cassian, Rowan, Rune, Rysand, Dorian. Oh, Dorian. We received some book mail from our friends at the Lost Bros, and so I wanted to share that with you before we wrapped up our coverage here, because they were kind enough to send us some more Bookish mail.
Yay.
So let me open this up and let's take a look. The Pixie page. So cute. Hi, Book Club After Dark. I'm so excited to bring our new licensed SJM collection to life. I'm so grateful you're a part of it. I hope you had as much fun styling these as I had creating them. And that's from Lex and team. And this is from Pixie Page. This is her new offshoot from the Lost Bros. She gave us some stickers, some little bags of stickers. Those are super cute. We've got star paper. Oh my god, they gave us so many shirts. Look.
Cute.
Fireheart, Cursebreaker, Starborn.
That's cute.
With Valaris. Oh my God, we are so ready. And by the way, for those listening, it was also announced that we are going to do the midnight release party with New Romantics. So you guys can get your shirts there too, because I know they're going to be there. But look,
They will be
Fulls are
there.
blessed.
Yes. So cute. As the
I love this.
mask, the
Fulls are
crown,
blessed.
as like the dread trove.
The mask. Yes, the dead trove is on here. Oh, I'm totally wearing this. This is what we're up to wear. This is great. Thank you so much for sending these to us. And then we have 2 more. They sent us. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Chapter 54 and 55. Right here. It's a bag. It's a tote
That's awesome.
bag. Thank you from the Lost Bros and the
Yeah,
Pixie
thank you
page.
so
We
much.
love it. Thank you for sending that our way. Michelle, next time I see you, I have to give you
Yay,
your shirts. We are so
please.
ready now for the midnight release party, which that said, please go check out the New Romantics website. You can get your tickets for the midnight release party. We will be there again. That will be the midnight release party, and the party will be on October 26th, ahead of the October 27th release. So, yeah, we'll be doing that, and I imagine it's a Monday night. I should probably look that up.
It is. It is a Monday night.
Yes. So we will be there. It's a Monday night. Please join us. They're not doing it at the bookstore. So if you know where the bookstore is, they're not doing it there. It's a bigger event. Similar when they did Onyx Storm, it'll be a bigger event. There's other events that they've done that are bigger. But it'll be a really fun time. There's lots of bookish creators that are going to be there that you can support. You can support us. You can listen to us. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have some stuff set up for you. And we're super ready for that. So I can't believe we're done with ACOTAR for now. But
I know.
one other thing I think we should tell folks is one other fun fact right now that we know for certain as part of the rest of our coverage for our schedule.
Oh, yes.
We are gonna be starting in September. Drumroll, please. Please tell them, Michelle, what are we starting in September that they don't
Crescent
know about
City.
yet?
So after
Crescent City.
Yes. After the first week of September, because we are going to stay true to our Cursor Broadbent coverage and cover her new book, The Lion in the Deathless Dark. So then after that, and after some other interviews, we are going to be covering Crescent City 1, 2, and 3. So buckle up, read all like 900 pages of each book.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot.
Because they're thick. So buckle up.
I don't remember half
ahead
of them either. Oof. Yes.
So yeah, that's what we're doing next.
Yes. And on that note, again, these will be high level. There are plenty of other podcasters. There's plenty of other really in-depth. You got lots of subreddits and all kinds of stuff for you if you really want to go and read all the things, or if you want to do your own reread again. Immersive read, which we're going to do. That is entirely your call. We're going to do very high level bookish book club style recaps the same way that we've done our ACOTAR coverage. So Crescent City is coming at you hot in September. But before we do that, though, we have to cover Crowns of Nyaxia, because Lion in the Deathless Dark is out now, and I'm super, super excited about covering that book, because that's the series that started it all. All right, well, that's ACOTAR wrapped up in a nice bow. Let's get on to mystery Q&A.
All right, so mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with either of us prior to asking.
You can be in any Maasverse. Which Maas are you going to be in? Which Maasverse will you be in?
This is like neither. I don't want to be in any of these worlds. There's too much death. Leave me alone. Leave me in the House of Wind with my smutty books and my house that will bring me unicorns and bubble baths. Honestly.
Okay.
So I guess House of Wind.
So you answered the question. So ACOTAR, House of Wind.
House of Wind.
Valaris.
The House of Wind.
Okay.
No.
Leave
me
in
the
House
of Wind.
I got it. Yeah, got it.
What about you?
I love the House of Wind because of the views too. I also love Bryce's apartment. In Crescent City, her view that she has. Yeah, well, let's not focus on that. Focus on the world. Don't focus on the storyline.
Sure.
Like the world itself. You don't have the storyline. You just have the world. You can live in Throne of Glass. You can live in ACOTAR, or you can live in Crescent City. Where are you going to live? Take away all the death and destruction parts.
All the death and
Only
destruction.
keep
The
the world
Asteri ruin
itself.
everything, and you have to pledge your life force to the Asteri.
No, not
and
that.
You drop it.
No, not that
Oh,
part.
okay, cool. Yeah, no, I still stick with House of Wind.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I understand House of Win. I love that. I'd probably pick. I think I need a cabin house
mhm.
in the mountains up there. I need
Oh, yeah.
a townhouse in Valaris, and then I also need a house in Crescent City.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
tall order.
We just have all
Can't
the
decide.
houses.
Yeah.
It's fine. Oh my goodness.
Throne of Glass is
Um,
too medieval for me. I need
yeah, it's very written like
I
the
need like a
feudal
full city.
era.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's too
No,
much
that
for
makes sense.
me. I'm not going that far back, and you
No,
can't do it. Yeah.
that makes sense. At least it's like Crescent City, you still have like technology, you know. You can
Well, you
still
do in
watch your
Valaris
shows.
too, to a certain point. Yeah, like you have running water and
No,
stuff.
like they're not texting and they don't have like soaps.
No, not that
that
far.
they-
Yeah, that's
yeah.
fair. Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, they have
Can you imagine
technology.
a reality TV in Crescent City? God, I would
That'd be
love it.
funny. Yeah.
I don't even watch reality TV, but I feel like I would watch it there.
For sure. Okay, so big on the news is the Lindsay Clancy case. We don't have to get
Yes.
deep into the case because it's pretty heavy. But my
Very.
question is, are you keeping track? Are you watching it? How are we getting our information and staying up to date
Listen,
on this?
okay, we're thriller readers, right? So one of the thriller books we just read, this was a Alice Feeney line, but there are no coincidences. And the way that this case is, listen, chock full of very interesting coincidences is wild. And I think because it's just all over my feed and I can't escape it, but also because I also keep watching all the videos that
Yeah.
it's unescapable. Of course, getting past the fact that it's obviously incredibly dark and the whole reason we're here is horrific. Um,
Mhm.
uh, the case itself and the judicial system piece of it is very interesting.
Yes.
And all of the parts of that, and also as a mom and postpartum depression piece of this and all of that, it's a case that I think from an American mother standpoint specifically because of the resources or lack thereof that we have, I think the case sheds a really large light that maybe has never been shed fully in this way on postpartum depression, and
Yeah, in the
also
healthcare
the
system.
care or lack thereof. Yeah, the healthcare
Mhm.
system as a whole in 2026. We've
Yeah.
seen these cases before. It's not the first one of these,
No.
but the cry for help that has the number of times is quite it's shocking. And it says a lot.
Mhm.
It says a lot about her husband's role in terms of like his acknowledgement of what she was going through and his support for her. Lots of things. There's a lot
Mhm.
to this. But yes, short answer, yeah, I'm definitely following it. What about you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely following it. It's hard because
Yeah, it's a lot.
having been fresh postpartum too, and I didn't suffer from postpartum depression, like many women do, and even like my first pregnancy, it was dark. I wasn't diagnosed with postpartum depression, but there were some dark days. But this time around it wasn't like that. But because, that's a common thing to happen. And I don't think it's not a conversation that a lot of people have. Let's end on that note. So before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next on Book Club After Dark.
Yes. So next week, Courtney Maya, who you might have heard of, is our first audiobook narrator that we're going to be interviewing. And we had a lot of fun with this
Mhm.
interview. So we're looking forward to
Yeah.
sharing it with you. We asked lots of questions. We got to find out all about the world of audio narration and like just how do you get started? What is it all about? And it was fun. We had a really good time with
Mhm.
Courtney. And so I think you'll enjoy listening to that episode for sure.
Yeah, we did. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on A Court of Silver Flames or suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art theories or anything bookish you'd like to share.
Yep. And as always, you can visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, stay up to date on our cozy content, and check out our merch.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.